The video. We are live. Good morning. It's Saturday baseball. You know me, I'm your host, the Roto Lady, and I have to just get my stuff together here. You guys can refresh if you want to be able to see the video on your phone along with the chat too, because I expect you to be chatting away today. Mitch, nice to see you. Douglas Boyle's here. I don't know where Daniel went, but hopefully he'll be back. And somebody call Malpal and tell him to come to chat room. Maybe he's busy. I just assume that Malpal doesn't have anything else to do on a Saturday besides come to Saturday baseball. Okay, let's talk. We're going to talk today about injuries. We're going to do an update on some injuries. We're going to talk about some players that you can pick up to replace your injuries. We're going to talk a little bit about some game news, although I'm sure most of you already got a good chunk of the news that's going on since there's only been 2 days of baseball so far. And then we're going to talk about the drama in MLB at the end of the show. So I wanted to start with the Genius of the Day question. I'm stealing that from our Sunday show, which is on tomorrow at 7 a.m., 7 to 10 Eastern time. You guys call in. The number is 888-963. Wait, 888-963. 888-963. I don't know the number. Lenny will shout it to me, I'm sure. Put it in the chat room, Lenny. Hi, Douglas. Hi, Daniel. Nice to see you back. So anyway, we're starting with the Genius of the Day question. Which player has homered, hit a home run on all 8 opening days that he's gotten a start in his career? So he's actually started on opening day 8 times in his career, and he's hit a home run every one of them. It's unbelievable. So this is a great Genius of the Day question. It's not that easy to look up. And then we'll move on. So you guys just answer that in the chat whenever you figure it out, or take some guesses. It's fun. On opening day, there were 29 home runs this year, and there were 13 stolen bases out of 17 stolen base attempts. I just thought that was interesting info. I don't really know how many home runs were hit last year on opening day or the year before, but it seems like a lot of home runs to be hit on opening day. John Means yesterday was out of this world. He made his first career start for Baltimore. They have to be happy that their starting pitcher it's their opening day, did so well. He threw 97 pitches and only one hit, and that was to the first batter, Kiki Hernandez, who is a good one to pick up right now. We have him on the list, so he's batting leadoff, obviously, for the Red Sox. John Means retired 18 consecutive hitters to finish the day. Struck out 5, didn't walk anybody. I told you 1 hit allowed. He became the first Orioles pitcher since at least 1901, so basically ever, to go 7 or more innings on opening day and allow 1 hit or less. Can you believe that? They've never had any starting pitcher go 7 innings. And not allow more than 1 hit. So that's crazy. He also became just the 3rd pitcher in baseball history to do so without also issuing a walk. He's now allowed 1 run or fewer in 5 straight starts. That's going back to last season, of course. But he's on a good roll. And I don't necessarily recommend picking him up or replacing somebody that didn't have a good start. It's very easy to act quickly and to want to drop players, and believe me, you do have to be willing to drop players early in the season. In fact, I recommend always having a spot or 2 on your roster that you can rotate, that you don't care that much about these players, and you don't feel so bad dropping them early in the season, because that's where you're going to find gold. And if you don't pick up players, then you'll never be the guy that found the gold on the waiver wire. We all want to be that guy. We all want to be the guy that has rostered the prospect who's going to break out and be the best prospect ever to happen to baseball. It very rarely ever happens. And it's kind of the same here. But you do definitely, every single year there is fantasy gold sitting out there on the waiver wire, and you have to be willing to drop some players to find that. So with John Means, I mean, yes, he's probably going to be a popular pickup this week. I'm sure he's been added in most leagues that can do daily add daily. There's a difference between daily moves and daily fab. Like most leagues you can make daily moves, but you can only pick up players once a week. There are leagues out there where you could just pick up a player right now if you wanted to go there and get one. And I love those leagues because I am never keeping track of it seems like every league is different for fab. Like in Tout Wars, we have to have it in by 8:00. That's when the fab runs. And the rest, labor, it has to be by midnight. One of the leagues is by 11:00. One league is even on Saturday. And it's really a pain in the ass. So I just feel like just to be able to go and pick up players is super nice. Although it's not very often that you find leagues like that. They're mostly at Yahoo. Okay. Eovaldi threw 5 1/3 innings, and he allowed 4 hits. He's another guy that just, he's going to have a good start here and then, but he's just not reliable to pitch a full season. So you have to be willing to use him when the matchup is good or when he's healthy, and be willing to get rid of him in other situations. Mitch was asking about Rojas. He wanted to know, I closed my Facebook page, but he wanted to know between several middle infielders who he should pick up for Brendan Rodgers, who's out. And I don't even know if Brendan Rodgers is worth holding on to. He's not on my injury report today, unfortunately. I just don't. He's never been healthy, and when he is healthy, he hasn't sealed the deal on having a job because he hasn't been very good when he's healthy. Of course, Garrett Hampson is his compadre over there in Rockiesville, and Garrett Hampson I think he has more to offer than Brendan Rodgers if he's available, which probably not. He qualifies at second base and outfield. He is another one that gets hurt a lot and just hasn't really been given an everyday opportunity to get settled in. So we don't really know his ceiling, although I would say it's pretty good. I mean, he can probably hit 15 homers and steal 30 bases if he had a full season and he was actually getting it done. He did very good in spring training. I think he had 4 or 5 stolen bases. So he's definitely running. And they say that the Rockies are going to run a lot. I am a fan of Josh Rojas, not because he's the best player or that he's going to be the best player, but you see he's filling in right now for Nick Ahmed at shortstop in Arizona. But he actually plays second base. So when Ahmed comes back from injury, Rojas will move over back to second base, where that's where he played. Last year, he played twice at shortstop, and he's already played there twice this year. So depending on your league, he should start qualifying at both shortstop and second base before too long, 3 more games. I absolutely think he's worth a pickup because he's another guy that has the potential of hitting 15 home runs and stealing 20 bases. So he's like a 15-15 guy for sure. Now, okay, mind you, there are some drawbacks here with this guy because he doesn't have a great strikeout rate. He's absolutely striking out way too much. He's 27 years old, so he's not a young kid, but he definitely, I was listening to Douglas's new friend who is probably going to join us on the roundtable on Monday. I was listening to one of his podcasts, and he said something that I thought, yeah, that's probably a good idea. So I'll give him the credit, even though I can't remember his name. Douglas, put his name in the chat room. I forget. It's baseball. Tell me the name of it. Douglas, tell the name of his podcast and his name. He was probably going to join us. Anyway, he was talking about picking up players off the waiver wire to fill in for those that are injured. And you're not going to really be using them for a long period of time, or they're just a fill in, a replacement player. He says it's a good idea to forget about the guys that are going to be great batting average, okay? They're not going to do anything for you in the long term. The ones that you probably want to use as replacement players are the guys that have the counting stats, such as home runs and stolen bases. Now, you might not want to roster a guy for very long that has a 200 batting average, but to put him in there short term is not going to affect the overall in Roto. It's not going to affect like your bottom line, okay, one way or the other. If he has a 195 batting average and hits 15 home runs, like while he's, I mean, this is a kind of guy that would be a better replacement player than somebody that is mediocre in as far as counting stats, but like really good at on base percentage and batting average. I really like that tip that he gave, and I agree with it. I never really thought of it that way before, but it makes total sense. So when you're looking for a replacement, look for counting stats rather than the average stats. His name is Adam Najemy, Najemy, and he has a podcast called Fantasy Baseball Disrupted with a capital D. Okay, if you listen to it once or twice, you know that's how he introduces it. Fantasy Baseball Disrupted with a capital D and a comma. But like Jay Bruce, okay, Douglas brings up Jay Bruce. He's exactly what we're talking about here. And so guys like that can do those counting stats are probably more valuable as a replacement player than the rest, because you're not really looking for a batting average since it won't affect shit in the long run. Okay. Some other game highlights. I was watching MLB TV. We have MLB channel here in New York. Watching that last night, and all of a sudden they were like going to commercial, and they said Trevor Bauer is 9 outs away from a no-hitter. And I thought, oh, good, I'll turn the game on. So, of course, actually didn't even have to, because the MLB channel went to that game, and you know they were showing Bauer. The minute that I start watching, I swear I'm like the worst bad luck for Bauer. Immediately coming back from that inning, entering the 7th inning, it's like the very first batter that comes up, Trevor Story, gets a hit. Okay, it goes out to left field, hits it one bounce to AJ Pollock. He throws it in. Okay, no more no hitter. But then, I mean, the Dodgers are ahead 10-0. So Bauer just falls apart, dude. He falls apart. It only took him 35 pitches to get through the first 3 innings, and he struck out 4 in the first 3 innings. And I mean, in the 5th inning, he threw 3 straight cutters to Ryan McMahon to get him swinging. And then he followed it up with 2 cutters to Chris Owings before he finished off with a slider. And all of his pitches were working well until I started watching, okay? 6 hitless innings. And then I told you about Trevor Story. Then the next batter. So Trevor Story's on first. The no-hitter's down the drain. Charlie Blackmon comes up, and it might have been the very first pitch he just hits out of the park, okay? Which I was like, oh, am I a bad person? Because I'm actually kind of like happy that Charlie Blackmon hit that home run since I own him, since I have him on my roster in Tout Wars. I was like, I'm kind of happy about that. So at least if it's somebody, it's going to be a guy that's on my team, right? So anyway, he hits a home run. That's a 2-run homer, okay? And then McMahon comes up, 2 batters. It was one in between Blackmon, and then McMahon comes up. He hits a home run. So it's just, I'm like, I need to turn this off because Trevor Bauer is failing because of me for sure, dude. The Dodgers, I mean, they were off to a slow start in the first game. They didn't score many. Actually, they're 3 for 16 with runners in scoring position. That was on opening day. They had 16 runners in scoring position. They only scored 3 times. They went 8 for 18 on yesterday, and through 2 games, the Dodgers have scored 16 runs on 31 hits, and they haven't hit a home run yet. Eric Hosmer, though, in San Diego hit a home run both days. Eric Hosmer. Hold on a second. I know Lenny will kill me for this because I'm texting. Okay. Yeah, so Eric Hosmer did very, very good. You know what? Eric Hosmer is underrated by far, and I think that if he happens to be available in any league, which he's probably not, and you can't really go out offering trades for him right now, but he's the king of RBIs, regardless of whether he hits a lot of home runs or not. He's kind of vanilla in that respect, so you can get him really late in drafts. And I mean, I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Eric Hosmer, but he hits right in the middle of the lineup, and he's just a king at RBIs. So next year, do not forget about him. He's kind of just boring, you know, like you don't really want him as your first baseman because he doesn't do that much. He'll hit like 20 to 25 home runs. But the RBIs is where he is stellar because of where he hits in the lineup, and because that team has gotten so much better over the last couple of years. Eric Hosmer is underrated fantasy wise. He has a good, he gets on base, good batting average, everything. So we're talking 100 RBIs every year for this guy. So, I mean, that's really all I have for the highlights, because we're going to talk about some other highlights as we go through this. But I just felt like you guys probably pretty much know all about these. And I saw that Starlin Castro was one of the most dropped players. So I always look at to see the most added, most dropped, most viewed players. And you can find that at CBS or ESPN. You can find it at Fantasy Pros also. I'm not sure if it's free or not, but probably. Starlin Castro being one of the most dropped players, it kind of baffles me a little bit. I feel like if he's available, you should probably, take a chance on him, because yes, I know that he's not fully healthy. He's got hamstring issues, like a lot of hitters right now have hamstring issues. It's an odd, I don't think it's an odd injury, but it's really like very common right now with these players, this hamstring problem, tight hamstring, torn, pulled, torn, tight, whatever. Starlin Cat, the thing is that yes, he was actually in the lineup the day that the first day, opening day, when the Mets and the Nationals got canceled. And nobody knows who the players on the Nationals are that have COVID. There was first one player that tested positive for COVID, and then there was like 5 other players that went into quarantine because of that. And then yesterday it came out that there was 5 total people, or 5, there's 4 players or 5 players and 1 front office guy. I don't know. Anyway, it's a few different players have COVID now, but we don't know who they are. So that's kind of wrong for fantasy, because how are you supposed to, they're not allowed to say who it is. I guess we'll figure it out real quick when we see who's not on the playing field, when they actually do play their games. But the fact of the matter is, Starlin Castro is getting some extra time off to get ready, right? So it's a blessing in disguise for Starlin Castro. And the other thing about Castro is, yes, I know he's not that exciting, but as a middle infielder, right, he qualifies, he's playing third base. And it's only going to take him a little while, 5 games, most likely 5 games, to qualify at third base. That means then he's available at catcher or corner and middle, at second base and third base. And I feel like people aren't really paying attention to that, but position eligibility is a very important early in the season. When you have like couple bench spots, try to find a guy that qualifies at more than 1 spot. I would do that over trying to find like the highest ceiling guy, or like the one that, you think has the potential. No, find the guy that plays all over the field, because if you get an injury, it is so much better than seeing Tout Wars. I'm just livid at Tout Wars right now. First of all, Trey Mancini did not qualify at first base. Tell me how that works out. Okay, well, they're saying he only qualifies at the position that he played the most the last time he was in baseball. So he had like 1 or 2 more games in the outfield than he did at first base. But everybody knows he's the first baseman. And the fact is, these players were going on the injured list, and on Roto, the website that we use, did not have them registered as on the injury list. So I felt like I couldn't pick up players to replace them, because if a player is injured, you can throw them on the IL, and it doesn't matter. It's endless. You can have as many players as you need on there. Only 2 out of 6 were placed on the DL before we picked up players. So when I'm informed that Mancini doesn't play first base, and I had just dropped Yuli Gurriel, so I had no first baseman, okay, the first day of the season, and I'm going back and forth with our commissioner, and he says, well, Mancini doesn't qualify. It's always been like, and then he says, well, the fact that they weren't actually registered on the IL doesn't mean that you couldn't have picked up players. So you can like literally reserve players, even if they don't fit on your roster, and pick up replacements. And then the next day, when they actually do finally get around to putting these players on the DL officially, I'm talking about on Roto officially, because they already were on the DL in Major League Baseball officially. He says, well, then you can move your roster around, drop some players, put them on the DL, and make your roster legal then. What? So I didn't know that you could actually like make your roster illegal and pick up players and make your roster illegal and then fix it the next day after, what about the people that actually wanted those players that didn't make the roster illegal? Like I'm not telling anybody. Luckily for me, nobody watches this show because they would know then too. So I'm like, I feel kind of bad about that, but I didn't know for the last 5 years I've been playing Tout Wars. I did not know that it was okay to pick up players and make your roster legal when you're doing it, and then decide the next day who you want to get rid of, or then put your players on the DL and make it legal, right? So anyway, okay, going back to the dealio with Starlin Castro and other position eligible players. It is like in the middle of the week, let's say somebody gets hurt, goes on the IL. In the middle of the week, you're allowed to replace that player by putting that player on the IL and replacing him with the player that you have on your bench. So you can't actually pick up players, but you can use the players that you have on the bench and replace them immediately. So then you don't have to spend the entire week waiting with a injured guy on your roster. So this is why it is so important to keep somebody, okay, that qualifies at more than one position. Starlin Castro is going to do that. I'm pretty sure that by the time the Mets and the Nationals get around to playing, and not only that, for those people that are dropping Starlin Castro for this reason, they think he's hurt, or they are annoyed at that. I mean, these games are going to be made up. It's not like you're just going to lose these games. So let's say you picked him up tomorrow, or tomorrow on Sunday you pick up Starlin Castro. Eventually he's going to play those games to make up for missing them in the beginning. And yeah, it might only be a couple games, but still it's an extra couple games that you're going to get out of this guy that you're not going to get from any other player that's on any other team besides the Mets and the Nationals. Okay, so there you go for that. We'll talk about Luke Voit a little bit. A lot of this information I got from The Athletic. They have an injury expert lady that talks about the optimal recovery time for these players. It's called ORT is what they call it. And so they come up with an optimal recovery time, and then you can compare that to what the team is actually saying. And with Luke Voit, he's got a tear, a meniscus tear, okay, in his left knee. So he's got only two options, surgical or surgical. There's two types of surgery that he could go for, which he's already made his decision which one he's going to go for. So, but the two options are that they could go in there and they could actually just trim the meniscus, okay? The meniscus, I believe, is the cushion it's the cushion between the bones, or I'm not really sure. Anyways, I'm just going to tell you what it says, so then we don't have to worry about me not being a doctor and all of this. The faster recovery one option would be to trim the meniscus, but the problem is that it could lead to a lot of like long-term problems, such as arthritis, because it doesn't have the cushion in there. The other is to repair the meniscus by sewing it back together, which takes 3 to 5 months to recover from. And so Voit has decided that he is going to go for the surgical option where they trim the meniscus. That's 3 to 4 weeks, okay? He should start light physical activity 10 days after the surgery. The athletic lady gives him an optimal recovery time of 7 weeks. 7 weeks, okay? And if he comes back any earlier, even if he sticks to the timeline of returning in 4 weeks, he's not going to be 100%. And I can't imagine why they would I just can't imagine why they would want to rush these players back. Like if it's not optimal, if it's 7 weeks to be guaranteed fully healthy knee, then you got to wait 7 weeks, especially since you're trying to take the shortcut anyways by going for the surgery option that takes less time to recover. Just makes no sense. So anyway, Chris Sale is a no-go, you guys. I'm pretty sure he's a no-go for this year. That's my opinion. Like if I was going to take a chance on somebody coming back from Tommy John, it would not be Chris Sale. No way. I would probably take Noah Syndergaard. Like if I had to choose, Noah Syndergaard, Severino, Chris Sale, these guys coming back from Tommy John, coming back from injury. The Red Sox are talking about having Chris Sale hopefully back in late May or early June. But the lady at the Athletic, the medical lady, says that it's way too quick. She says, in quotes, he should target a return following the All-Star break if he wants to be successful in the second half of the season. Even then, it will be important to limit his innings thrown in total and in each outing. Okay, so I don't see Sale returning as an ace this year, but he could be a valuable addition to the rotation in the second half of the season if he's patient with his rehab. Well, we've been talking about Chris Sale already, about expect him to come back second half of the season. Ron Chandler was kind of high on taking a chance on Sale, for really cheap, and you did get him absolutely cheap. So, it depends on the league that you're in, but I still feel like what's the point if he's already had a setback. He's had problems with his neck. He's not young. He is absolutely not young. He's got a ton of innings on his arm. So I just feel like don't do it with Sale. Robbie Ray fell down the stairs, hurt his elbow, carrying his kid. He is actually throwing at 100%. He threw off a mound yesterday, and he should return soon. Thank you for that, Robbie Ray. Thank you for that. Framber Valdez is we keep feeling okay. The guy's got a finger. He's got a finger problem. It's not an elbow or an arm issue or a shoulder problem. It's a finger. We did think he was going to miss the whole season, so we stopped drafting him. And then it came out the news where he is not going to miss the whole season because he decided not to go through surgery. So his finger is healing well without surgery, and it shouldn't be that he should come back, okay, this season, but he still needs a minimum of 8 weeks for his bone to heal. So be careful on Framber Valdez. I would not even pick him up right now. If you already have him on your roster, so be it. He's on the IL, but I wouldn't go grab him. Carlos Carrasco, okay. Carlos Carrasco is somebody that I am very familiar with because I have him on my labor team. It was a bad idea when I drafted him, and I kind of knew it, but I did it anyways, which was very stupid. First, he had elbow soreness, and now he's got a hamstring problem. We've heard all kinds of stuff, whether it's a grade 1 hamstring strain, or also we've heard that his hamstring is torn. So the lady at the Athletic says that she gives him a grade 2. He's progressing well. He's begun throwing. He hopes to return before the end of May, and she says this is realistic, although he's still going to be at injury risk. He's still going to be high injury, big red flag, like beeping in your face. Do not go, I don't know, just don't get too excited about him coming back, because it's just what it seems like lately. He's a lot of injuries, lots of problems there. So I mean, I like the guy. I really regret drafting him. Ohtani has a blister. The first player to leave the game with a blister this season. The blister thing is interesting because it really, I mean, it seems so like if we had a blister, me or you, it would not be a problem, right? We can just let it heal on its own. But as a pitcher, you have a blister on your hand that's holding the ball, gripping the ball. It is absolute nightmare. If you do not let it heal, and that's what it takes, just time to heal it, it is going to get worse, and it can get infected. And once it gets to the point where it's like open, it's impossible. You can't put any cover on it, okay, because it's illegal for any substances or coverings or anything on your hands during the game. So he would be able to use a Band-Aid or a cover, protective something over his fingers, while he's practicing and throwing bullpens and such, but he cannot do it in the game. So if you don't let that thing heal up, it will cause a lot of problems. Pitchers get blisters because they're always rubbing, they're holding the ball. The threads on the ball can cause it to rub to, you're rubbing together. A fingernail could cause a blister, whatever it is. He's got a blister, whatever. I really was expecting Ohtani to be like the guy that we thought he was going to be a couple years ago. He's gone through Tommy John. He's been through this, that, the other, and he has just not been the two-way player that everybody wants him to be. And you got a good discount on him this year. He had an excellent spring, and I'm afraid that just might be a problem. So that's Ohtani. Next on the list, we have Adalberto Mondesi, who started the season on the IL. He was totally fine on Monday. And then on Wednesday, they say that he's going to start the season injured, that he has a right oblique strain. Okay. And the guy's got lots of injury problems. Okay. He's had a groin strain, lower back strain, right shoulder impingement, just to name the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. But he had shoulder problems in 2019. And last year, he actually played like most of the games. I think he played, I don't know, 47 out of 60 games or something. He was relatively healthy last year. But he's never played more than 102 games in any season. They say that, okay, so the doctor lady, she says that if it turns out to be mild, it's 3 weeks. If it's more serious, it could take 5 to 8 weeks. It's very hard to predict these oblique problems. George Springer has one. You cannot predict these because they just tend to sometimes linger on and on. And like if you come back too early, obviously turning, twisting at the plate, batting is really bad for it. And so if you take that risk and you do not wait long enough, it will get worse and then you're out for the season and stuff like that. So anyway, Mondesi, what a disappointment in Mondesi. Okay, what a disappointment for that. But I would say optimal recovery time, 6 weeks for Mondesi. Here's a couple players you can pick up if you have Mondesi. Mondesi is a shortstop. You can pick up Chris Taylor. He's rostered in 48% of leagues. This is a guy that qualifies all over the place. Okay, we don't know for sure that he even has an everyday job right now. In fact, I think that he's already missed one of the games this season. But he played 13 games at second base, 20 games at shortstop, 24 games in the outfield, and so he should qualify. He's also like the backup guy for left field, center field. He qualifies everywhere. He just it's very useful player because of that. So last season he was on pace for over 20 home runs and 9 stolen bases. He definitely can steal bases and hit home runs. So another good reason to put him on as a replacement player. Like I said, he's only on team rostered. He's only rostered in 48% of the leagues. 48%. That's according to CBS. So, I mean, I think that a lot of leagues that we play on, like my leagues that I play on, he is not probably available in very many. But regardless, I pretty much put players on here that were rostered in less than 50% or about 50%, right around 50%. Okay, he's a good one to make a bid on him. Joey Wendell. I'm a big fan of Joey Wendell. I think you guys should know that by now. I actually was like hesitant to put him on active in any league that I have him in, which is several. I do love his position eligibility because he qualifies everywhere too. And he may not show up on the depth chart as the starting anything, but he plays everywhere. And so he already did hit a home run and he's capable of hitting. Okay. He was like 15 homers and probably 25 stolen bases that you get out of this guy. Plus he doesn't hurt your batting average. Not going to hurt your on base percentage too bad. I do think that he's worth looking at. Tampa Bay is obviously well known for messing around with the lineup, messing around with the players' playing time. But he's already a utility guy, so you don't have to worry about it. He's probably going to play wherever they need him that day. That's the beauty of a utility guy. And Joey Wendell is worth putting. If you have a replacement that you need to make, this is another position eligible guy that you can use on your fantasy team. Ryan McMahon is the third position eligible guy that I thought he's actually rostered in 60% of leagues, but he's only starting in 40% of leagues, which shows that he is just a backup for injury purposes and stuff like that. So he played 12 games at first, 33 games at second, 14 games at third, and 2 at shortstop. So he bats 6th in the Colorado lineup. That right there, those things that I just said about Ryan McMahon alone is enough for me to consider putting him on my roster for sure, even if he's just a bench guy that replaces players when he's needed. Yesterday he started the game at second base and then he moved to third late in the game as they did a double switch, but his defensive versatility is going to keep him in the lineup for the most part. So They obviously have some injuries that they're dealing with too, so it gives them more opportunity to play. But he's projected at RotoWire for 17 homers and 2 stolen bases, 50 runs, and 60 RBIs. I say the fact that he could steal bases and hits for little power, he plays in Coors Field, so that's a positive. And Garrett Hampson, of course, if he's available, you should hop on him because he's probably got the highest ceiling of any of these guys, but he's also very risky. So you have Starlin Castro, who's going to qualify at third and second. You have Ryan McMahon, you have Joey Wendell, and Chris Taylor. Another guy that you might want to take a look at, who I don't think qualifies at shortstop or might not qualify at second, but definitely third base and outfield, is Edwin Rios in LA. He's another Dodger. So, okay. Zach Gallen. Oh, Zach Gallen. Let me just look in the chat room and say hi to everybody. McMahon may end up at third base. Fuentes, I'm not sure about Fuentes. I think he's a temporary player. I really do think he's temporary, but Mitch says that the word that he hears is that the new ball is going to favor curveball pitchers. That's good. And Snell, what does XA mean? Snell did good yesterday. I liked it. I liked what I saw from Snell. Zach Gallen. Okay. So Zach Gallen has a forearm fracture, a hairline fracture in his forearm. So you automatically think Tommy John surgery, but that's not what's going to happen. He does not need Tommy John surgery. It's different part of this. It's a bone. It's in his bone. Okay. Number one, when they were saying like he's not going to go on the IL, whatever, like he's, we're just going to take it easy with him for a little while. He was hitting in the batting cages and he got this hairline fracture. Okay. Well, that's fine and dandy, but when I looked it up online, like how long does a hairline fracture take on that part of your body? They say it takes 6 to 8 weeks, and I said, oh God, okay. They're just trying to like, I don't know what they're trying to do. You know how they are. They don't like to really talk about like 6 to 8 weeks, okay, if they don't have to. So they said, oh, they make it sound so like, they make it sound so not serious because they're like, oh, he can do low impact throwing and all of this. And I say, I don't know, man, 6 to 8 weeks is a long time for this. And I mean, you want him to heal up properly. You do not, this is the situation that you do not want to make worse. Okay. Now, here's the thing. Like he says that the only time it bothers him is when he's throwing his curveball. So of course I'm like, which is Zach Gallen's best pitch? His best pitch is his changeup along with his fastball. So like, he doesn't throw the ball 100 miles an hour either. So that's like less risky of a pitcher, in my opinion. If you're going after pitchers that are like big velocity guys, you are risking Tommy John every time the guy goes out there to pitch. That's just, I mean, you're risking it anyways, but to me, it's just more risky. Okay. So let's have a drink out of the happy hour cup. Happy hour Wednesday nights. Okay. Wednesday nights at 7 and Thursday nights at 8. Yesterday, Zach Gallen threw 39 pitches in a bullpen session. Whoop-de-doo. He didn't throw any curveballs, so that's good. They say mid to late May. The hairline fracture needs time. Time cures everything. Okay, that's what I wrote. And 4 weeks of light toss and then 4 weeks to ramp up his pitch count and stuff to get ready to go out and start games again. But I say he should not be. I bet you he's not going to be using that curveball much this year at all. Even when he healed up, they said that this is the last pitch that he'll be getting up to speed. That he will be getting all of his other pitches like on track before he even considers throwing a curveball. And lucky for me, it's not his best pitch, but it's one of his pitches that he uses. And part of the talent that he has is the number of pitches that he has in his repertoire. Like he's got 5 different pitches that he uses. And so when you take one of those away, I'm sure it's going to have a little bit of an effect on how well he does. I mean, I don't know how much effect it will have, but I already have him. So I'm not like going to be picky. I just want him out there pitching. And okay, if he puts up like relatively decent numbers this year, I'll be happy with that. Totally happy. Cole Calhoun is somebody that like wasn't even being drafted. And I have to say, like, I know he's broken finger or something. But the thing about Cole Calhoun is we know that he is a monster home run power guy. He's a monster. Regardless of his bad batting average and all of this, I think his batting average is getting better as he gets older, but I'm not positive. I just know that the number of home runs that he hits is outweighing his batting average problems because he's running the bases. Okay. He was scheduled to get 6 at bats yesterday at the spring training alternate site that they have in a backfield game. So his ETA is 1 week. If he's available, which he probably is in a lot of leagues, hop on Cole Calhoun because he's going to be ready to come back and he will hit you for power no matter what. He only plays outfield, of course, but he is a power guy. There's no doubt about that, okay? Power to the max. Josh Donaldson is hurt already. The very first at bat, I think, maybe his second at bat, he hit a double and he didn't even make it past first base. He was limping to second base. He came out of the game with an injured leg. We didn't know much about it, but we were praying, okay? Donaldson owners were praying that it wasn't his calf problem because he's already had years of calf situations. So it's not his calf, it's his shin or his hammy. It's his hamstring. Okay. Anyway, there's an update coming today, so we'll find out more about Josh Donaldson. But in the meantime, you're going without Josh Donaldson, and you kind of expect, this is not a huge surprise for you. You didn't want it to happen, but when you put him on your roster, you knew that there was a risk of the Josh Donaldson today not being the Josh Donaldson that we've seen in recent past. He's obviously past his peak. Okay. By the way, past your peak, let's talk about for 1 second. I'd like to give a shout out to Miggy Cabrera and Albert Pujols too. Hello. I think I was made fun of, dude, for even mentioning Albert Pujols because the Angels have Jared Walsh now. There's all I know is one thing. Okay. Albert Pujols and Miggy Cabrera are oldies but goodies. And yes, they're not going to, Miggy had a batting average like worse than he's ever had. And that's fine. He's older, but he still has a year or two left in his contract. And they are going to get him at bats. They both of these teams have a DH. So I don't know why they wouldn't put these older players that are getting paid a lot of money in the DH role. And I can't remember who. I know Miggy is already the DH, but Albert Pujols, for some reason, I want to think that there was someone else batting DH already. I don't know. Whatever it is, Albert Pujols, he hit a home run. So did Miggy Cabrera. So whoever made fun of me, you can just take that to the bank, okay? Because they will. And Albert Pujols will get 70 to 80 RBIs every year, just like he's done for the past 15 years or so. I don't know if it's 15, but it's close to that. And Miggy too. I don't think he's going to get as many RBIs as Albert Pujols, but take a look at Albert Pujols' stats and you will see that he's reliable for that amount, even though he's old and kind of crippled, and his batting average totally stinks. But he's not going to do what he used to do. But both of these guys deserve a lot of credit. They were not good extensions that they signed. That these teams signed them to like way more money than anybody else was getting at the time for way too long. And then, Bryce Harper is going to be in this boat. Machado is going to be in this boat. Now Lindor is going to be in this boat 10 years and stuff for this. I can't believe Lindor turned down $320 million. Okay. And then the Mets turned around and gave him what he wanted. Holy moly. Is anybody worth that much? I don't think even Bryce Harper is worth that much. But you got to pay what the going rate is, and it's nice to see that baseball is not broke, but they might be after their latest little trickery. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Sean Murphy, this guy Sean Murphy. Okay, Sean Murphy had a collapsed lung in the offseason or something wrong with his lung. He did not get an early start at spring training. He was not playing for a good chunk of spring training. And as much as I love his talent, you have to question, like, how healthy is he? How healthy is he going to be if he's starting out this season already? He's got collapsed lung. Now and it's not his fault. He was hit by a pitch in the wrist. Okay, so now he's got wrist contusion. We don't really know anything, but I don't think he's going to go on the IL. So you will not be relieved of that spot to pick up somebody. He's just going to be, I don't know. It's worse for a player to be injured and sitting on the bench rather than be put on the IL, because for fantasy purposes, you cannot replace him unless they actually do put him on the 10-day deal, which is way better than it used to be. 15-day deal, right? It's better than it used to be. Eduardo Rodriguez, yay, another one of my Tout Wars. I have at least 6 players on my Tout Wars team that are on the disabled list. And I also have Steven Strasburg and Dinelson Lamet. Okay? Anyway, Rodriguez, he threw 3 simulated innings at the alternate spring training site or wherever they have their camp going on. He went from dead arm to elbow inflammation. I mean, first he had heart problems from COVID. Then now he looked great in the spring, and so we all hopped on it. Now, then he gets dead arm, and then now he's got elbow inflammation, and he hopes to return to the rotation on April 8th. That's in Baltimore. So we'll see what happens there. It's 5 days from now. You can't really do much with him. At least they put him on the IL, though, so you don't have to, you can pick up a player to stick there. George Springer is recovering well. They say he's recovering well from grade 2 oblique strain. Now, the problem with George Springer is exactly what we talked about earlier. That, yes, it's great that the Toronto Blue Jays are saying whoop-de-doo, he's going to come back as soon as he qualifies to get off of the IL, which would be 10 days from when he was put there. So they say that he could return when eligible. That's this coming Thursday. The doctor lady at The Athletic said that if he comes back on Thursday, that he will be returning after only 2 weeks, and these strains take longer to heal, no matter. Okay, 2 weeks is not long enough, not even for the most mild of oblique problems. And I'm afraid that I would much rather him sit an extra week or 2 out right now and be able to play the rest of the season healthy than try to come back, because they were even talking about, even after he was diagnosed with this oblique strain, they were talking about having him ready for opening day. Now, I don't know if that was just like why they would say that, because even the simplest of minds medically, like myself, understand that is not going to happen. This idea that he was going to be ready for opening day, it was like, it makes no sense. So if they bring him back on Thursday, we have big problems going forward with Springer. I guarantee that we will have problems. So, I mean, what do? There's nothing you can do. If he's not careful, he will be re-injuring that, and he will be out for twice as long as expected, just because of the fact that they wanted to have their new shiny toy, hitting. Toronto's fine without him for now. Kiki Hernandez. I heard Douglas talking about him, I think. He's only owned in 40% of leagues, Kiki Hernandez. Now, I would like to say that I want to know where he qualifies and what he did last year, because didn't he play multiple positions last year? Let's check it out. What we do know is that he's batting leadoff for the Red Sox. Let's see what he did last year real quick. Where he played. In 2020, he played 30 games at second, 17 games in the outfield, 2 games at shortstop, and 2 games at first base. Okay, so we know that he can, if necessary, play all over the place. He is on the depth charts at first, second, third, shortstop, right, center, and left. Okay? But he's the starting second baseman in Boston right now. So that's that. I mean, he's going to play every day. Let's see. He's only hit against lefties. He just doesn't have that great of a batting average regardless. So, but he doesn't strike out that much. He strikes out about 20% of the time. Doesn't really walk very often. His contact rate is right around 75%. But here's the deal. He bats leadoff. That's what you need to know. He is projected at RotoWire to hit 19 home runs with 66, I would say higher than 66 runs. If he's going to bat leadoff, he should probably get 75 runs. Okay. I mean, unless he's that horrible of a base runner, which I don't think he is. He hasn't really been like, he's always been batting, like getting like about 400 at bats in a season, because the Dodgers did the same thing to him that they did to whoever's playing first base there now. Who's playing first base for the Dodgers? Anyway, whoever it is happy that they get like a full-time, a real job where they know where they're going to be hitting, they know where they're going to be playing, and that kind of does matter. Just, a little bit of like consistency, and you know where you're going to play, you know where you're going to bat. Everything could be better. So Kiki Hernandez could have a better season this year because of that. He's still going to hit home runs, not going to steal any bases, but he definitely will score runs. And the fact that he's only owned in 40%, that's a travesty. So go ahead, run out. Get Kiki Hernandez. I wouldn't spend like all my money on him, but he's got a pretty solid job in Boston because there's nobody. That's the truth. They have Hunter Renfroe. They have, I don't know who else. They have just a bunch of nonsense. Okay, that's coming from a Red Sox fan, so I'm allowed. Another guy that Douglas did bring up is Cesar Hernandez, who Cesar Hernandez is the perfect example for what this guy was talking about in his podcast, which is the fact that Cesar Hernandez is not the type of guy that you should be going out and using as a replacement, because his batting average and his on-base percentage and his leadoff statistic, those are just, that's what he excels in. It's not the counting stats at all. So you might need him for a couple weeks. You're going to put him out there. He'll play every day. He'll bat leadoff, but what's he going to do for you? He's probably not going to get very many counting stats. So watch out for that. Adam Eaton is one. He's owned in 60% of the leagues. I'm trying not to say owned anymore because it's not right, and I agree that it's not right. So I'm trying to make an attempt. So it's hard when you're talking about waiver wire because it's like everything. Adam Eaton is owned. No, he's claimed. He's rostered. He's on somebody's team 60% of the time. He's got a career 282 batting average. Now, this is another guy, he's probably not going to be excellent. Like, he's probably not going to go crazy with the home runs and stolen bases, but he can do a little bit of both for sure. And I would say he's better at than Cesar Hernandez. He is, he keeps his strikeouts low. He did struggle last year. He did not hit well at all. But he's got a career 282 batting average. He's playing for, I want to make sure that I'm right. I think it's the White Sox. Yes, he's playing for the White Sox. What can I say? He's projected 13 stolen bases, 13 home runs, 91 runs because he bats at the top of the order. Okay, that's lovely. Now, I do have the batting orders in front of me, and you can't tell that much like yet. Okay, you just can't tell that much about the batting orders at this point. But you could tell a little bit, and you definitely can tell. Like, Adam Eaton hits in the second number 2 spot, and Tim Anderson is the leadoff guy in Chicago White Sox. That's why I put him on my team in our Serious Host League. I drafted him like a round early because I felt like, I know he's batting leadoff. Tim Anderson is a solid shortstop, and as much as I screamed about the fact that there are so many shortstops, right? I have to admit that, especially when I did the National League only draft the other night, it was like, oh my gosh, you cannot wait that long on shortstop. I thought they were never ending, and they are not never ending. They are not never ending, especially in the only league, but even in like regular, everyday 12-team mixed leagues, the shortstop comes to a point where, yeah, it's deep, okay, until like the 22nd round, or if you get to a certain point and you don't have a shortstop, you are picking from the pile, okay, the pile of junk. That's what you're picking from. Anyways, Adam Eaton plays outfield. Okay, David Peralta, he's another guy on the list. He plays in 43%, or he's on 43% of leagues, teams, whatever. 43% rostered. He could be benched, but only against very good left-handed pitching. So he's not going to be a strict platoon. He came in as a pinch hitter when they were facing Blake Snell. Blake Snell is a good example of what he may be benched for, which is a very good left-handed pitcher. So he can still hit lefties, but they don't like him out there against somebody that's really good. Like Blake Snell is really good lefty, so he was benched, but he did come in and as a pinch hitter, and he finished the game in the outfield. He hit 30 home runs one time, and I'm not saying that he's going to do that again, but he did do that. Now, that was 2018, I believe, so it wasn't really the season where everybody was hitting all kinds of home runs because the ball was juiced up. It was actually the year before that. So I don't know. Like, he was only on pace for 15 home runs last season, and his batting average is okay. It's pretty good. He bats right in the middle of the order, though, here. And I definitely think that he could be a temporary stopgap for anybody that needs that. AJ Pollock, shame on you for not having AJ Pollock. He's only rostered 58% of leagues. If he's available, just grab AJ Pollock, okay? Even though, I have to say, hold on, don't do it yet because he did sit out one game already. Now, the thing about AJ Pollock is he had a great season last year, and we know when he's healthy, he's going to be a very good player. However, and also on top of that, you're pretty sure that he's going to get lots of playing time because of how much they're paying him, which is over $10 million a year. And they signed him for 5 years, like just a couple years ago. So AJ Pollock, even if it's just for the fact that he is getting paid a lot of money, that is a good enough reason for teams to put these players out there. I mean, look at Chris Davis, for crying out loud, okay? Chris Davis with a C. They just kept putting him out there, rolling him out there, even though he was horrible. They were like, we're paying him too much money to sit on the bench. No, this is called, what's it called? It's a fallacy that people use all the time, and it's about sunk cost, okay? Yes, the cost is already going to be there. You're going to pay Chris Davis, but it doesn't mean you have to keep putting him out there and wrecking your team for the year. Just bench the guy. But AJ Pollock is good. He should see most of the games. He should be out there. He will hit for power. He will hit for average. He will hit steal bases. Well, no, he's not. He's probably not going to steal too many bases. However, he's good. He's absolutely good. And he's only rostered in 58% of leagues. Here's another one, a shiny new toy. I am not telling you to put this guy on your team, even though he is absolutely like one of the highest on the list of the most added players this week. Taylor Trammell, Seattle, shiny new prospect loveliness, right? This guy has not played above AA, okay, and he's got potential to steal bases. He has a little bit of power, not a ton of power. We don't really know yet. He had a great spring, and now he's on the roster. He's playing in the outfield, and he's expected to, by RotoWire standards, hit nine home runs and steal 15 bases. That's the ceiling, okay, people? That is the ceiling for this guy. I know that it's exciting to get a youngster on your team. He's only rostered in 40% of leagues, but he will be rostered in 90% of leagues by the end of this week. By Monday, he will be on teams 90% of the leagues. So, I mean, if I was, I would not say I wouldn't do this because I absolutely think it's a good idea, which is to get these prospects, maybe spend some money on a prospect that's doing well right now, like Taylor Trammell. He's exciting for people, and he's great trade bait, okay? Him and closers. Prospects and closers are great for trade bait. If you are having problems with injuries, the best thing to do is to trade away a closer and or a prospect. They are worth more now than they ever will be, at least in the next couple seasons, because they tend to do well for the first month or two until the pitchers start to figure them out, until the catchers start to study the video and see where their shortcomings are, and then they target that, and they will take advantage of that in the major leagues. And like I said, he's not even played above AA. So what you're dealing with here is a very, very risky player with very low, not high ceiling, not low ceiling, but not high. It's not like Vladdy ceiling, you know. It's not like Tatis ceiling. It's Taylor Trammell. He hits in Seattle. Seattle is a pitcher's park. It is not a hitter's park. So, I mean, it's not the worst hitter's park in baseball. That would probably be Miami. But it's not great either. San Francisco is getting better for hitters, but it's still not a good place for hitters. Okay, Manny Margot. Manny Margot. I know if Malpal was here, he would know all about Manny Margot because he used to be a Padre. He used to be a Tampa Bay guy. Anyway, I think we all know that he steals bases. He's known for his legs. He looks to be like maybe growing into a little bit of power, and he already hit a home run, so he's probably going to be popular this weekend for pickup. He, in his first 6 at bats, he hit a home run. He was expected to split time and still might split time with Kevin Kiermaier. So he was supposed to like sit against right-handed pitching, which is like the big side of the platoon that was supposed to go to Kevin Kiermaier. Sit against right-handed pitching, but he actually started versus Pablo Lopez yesterday or the day before. Anyway, he started against is it righties that he's sitting that by? Is Pablo Lopez a righty or lefty? I'm gonna have to look this up. I totally should know this, but let's see. I don't know. I can't even see because I don't have the right shit in front of me. Let me look. 1 second, please. Please hold. Okay. Righty. Pablo Lopez is righty. Trevor Rogers is the lefty. I don't know why I get these two confused. Pablo Lopez and Trevor Rogers. I don't know, but I do. So anyway, Margot. What can Margot do? Let's see. He played in 47 out of 60 games last year. He was on pace to steal 23, or he was on pace to steal more than 20 bases. He was on pace to steal over 30 bases last year. That's the truth. He was on pace to steal 30 bases. So he did steal 12 bases in 47 games, and he only hit 1 home run. So whatever that is on pace to do. He had, like I said, he played in 47 out of 60 games, so he wasn't like platooned that much, but he's on I don't know. I just feel like he's sketchy because Kiermaier is not a bad player either. He's also a speedy guy. And if I don't have Margot's splits in front of me, but they did mention that he was supposed to be benched against righties, which means he's benched for the majority of the platoon, and then Kiermaier would get the majority of the platoon at bats. He would get the most at bats. I don't know. Keep an eye on it. Margot is absolutely capable of stealing bases, though. And this is the type of guy, okay, that this dude was talking about in his podcast. He can steal some bases quickly. And you don't really want to have him in there all the time because you don't ever know when he's going to play. But in DFS, daily games, daily roster changes, you can, even if for temporary moment, you can, fill up your roster accordingly. And if he's sitting, then you sit him. But if he's playing, then he has a good chance of stealing a base probably. He's already hit 1 home run this year. We'll see what happens with that. He's only 26. I know for sure. I don't think this. I know this. Power, you can sometimes grow into power. You can sometimes because you're just a little guy when you're starting out. You're not even fully physically at your peak, okay? When you first start playing baseball, you're that. But you don't grow into stealing bases. That is something that you either have or you don't, and that just fades away. But power can sometimes, as you get older and more manly, sometimes power comes around a little bit. So we'll see with Margot, but don't put your eggs, don't count on it. Don't count your chickens. I don't know. Okay. Sixto Sanchez. I swear this guy can be dropped, and I have him in NL only league for $1 because I got to keep 3 players in that league, and Sixto Sanchez was $1, so I kept him. And he's just this guy. I mean, if he wasn't always injured, I would not be saying this right now. But now he's got his MRI. He's got mild inflammation in the back of his right shoulder. That's a problem because he is a pitcher. For crying out loud. He doesn't have any kind of clear timetable for his return. And the Marlins are basically done expecting him to pitch. They said that they were going to send him down and that he could come back and pitch when they needed a 5th starter. And that was going to be on April 14th is the first time that they actually need to use their 5th starter. So he was going to be a possibility to come back to the majors on that date. I kind of already assumed that wouldn't happen, but now we're sure that it's not going to happen. And we don't really know enough. He's just got inflammation in the back of his shoulder, but that could be, it could, who knows how long that could last. Okay. It just, there's no clear timetable for his return at this point. Drop him. You could drop him. I'm probably going to, well, if I have nobody to pick up in NL only, so I might not drop him, but I would if I could, if I had anybody that was even remotely capable, okay, on the availability waiver wire, whatever. But it feels like this guy is always hurt anyway. He's been hurt. He's never, like, he pitched in 2019, he pitched 82 innings. That's the most he's pitched in a season because he's just hurt all the time. And so whatever potential that he has, he really needs to get his injuries under control before you can even start talking about potential 310 ERA or whatever, because he pitched well last year, but he only pitched 25 innings because he was hurt again. God, you can pick up Kikuchi. Kikuchi's only owned in 46% of leagues, and this is a Seattle Mariner that is absolutely worth picking up. And I mean, the hype started late, so if you drafted early, this guy could be available. Maybe he's already picked up, but he is. We've talked about him a lot of times on the Saturday Baseball Show, in that his stats, his surface stats are not really showing the whole picture, and he's a sneaky, decent pitcher, and he was looking great. I saw him out on the mound. He's looking confident. Maybe it does take a little while for somebody to move all across the world, go into a brand new culture where they don't speak the language at all, and like just try to get settled in. So it's been a couple years now, and Kikuchi this could be his year where he actually earns the money that they signed him for to begin with. Okay. Nick Senzel. I put this in there for you, Lenny. I put it in there for you. Lenny's boyfriend is Nick Senzel. Okay. That's his boyfriend. Anyway, Nick Senzel hurt his shoulder diving to catch a ball. He absolutely avoided serious injury. He's expected to be back in the lineup this weekend. That means like today or tomorrow. Rosenthal, he was originally placed on the injured list after struggling to throw back-to-back days. His injury worsened after his last throwing session, which is a big problem for those that have him in their leagues because he was the closer in Oakland. He was like one of the few closers that actually had a secure job. And so he's very popular in drafts. He's kind of like medium priced, but he's already had one scare with injury, and this is just another problem here. His injury worsened, not getting better. So the team decided to sit him down. It takes 6 days for the medication that he's taking to kick in or to be effective. So he hasn't even had an MRI. They're just like giving him this medication. They say it takes 6 days for it to kick in. So they'll see if the medication works, and then we'll know more about his injury. But to this point, he has not had an MRI. So we have no clue like what's really going on in there. I mean, we don't. They probably do. The Diego Castillo is the one that's gotten to look. Wait a minute. Diego Castillo is in Tampa Bay, but he's a potential pickup that I have on my list. I have 2 potential pickups on here. But let's talk about Jake Diekman, because Jake Diekman is actually the replacement for Rosenthal right now. I talked about him just a couple of weeks ago when we had the first problem, like scare with Rosenthal. I said that I was looking for how to pronounce Jake Diekman's name on YouTube, and I was like, wow, I did a double take. I was like, he's really fun pitcher to watch, and he's really effective, and like take a look at him on YouTube. You'll see what I'm talking about. He is the closer right now in Oakland. So if you do have Rosenthal, it would be a great idea for you to invest pretty heavily. I mean, invest some money into Diekman. I don't know how good he's going to be as the closer, though. I will tell you this. He blew the only save chance that he had last season. He's great at holds. Like when he was getting all these holds, he had 21 innings pitched, a .42 ERA. His whip was actually higher than his ERA at .94. Strikes out a lot of batters. 31 strikeouts in 21 and a third. But he did blow his only save chance, and I don't think he has like any saves to speak of on his on his resume. So you have to be a little concerned about that. Like there are just are pitchers that are really good in the setup role or the relief role, mid relief, whatever it is. They get holds like crazy, but the minute that you put them in there to get saves, they absolutely blow up. There's a lot of pressure in that spot. So what it is, it is. I don't think you should invest highly in Jake Diekman, but he is going to get the save chances for now, probably, until he continues to screw up. Like I don't know. We'll see what happens, but he's going to be the most affordable probably on the free agency. Then there's Mark Melanson, who people were just like not wanting to draft because they didn't think that he would be the closer. But if you listen to me, I told you that he would be the closer to start the season because they're not paying him that much money though. So if he does mess up, his leash is not going to be long. He's not that great at getting strikeouts. So, but he is an effective closer. He has been his whole career. He is going to get the chance to get the saves at this time. If he fails, if he falters, Pagan will likely be the next guy in line. Although I don't even know for sure that that's true because Pagan was so bad when he first came to San Diego that he may not that he might not be a closer material. Okay. And Drew Pomeranz has just as much chance of being the closer in San Diego as Emilio Pagan does. And that is the truth. So, like, certain things are said in the fantasy circles, and then people just run with them thinking, like, oh, well, they said Pagan. People were literally drafting Pagan over Melanson, even though the Padres never one time gave you any inkling to think that. So you got to be careful of that. This is the way that the game of telephone works. Like you got to make sure that the information that you're getting is actually coming from somebody in charge and not just a journalist or a fantasy expert. Okay, because we're all fantasy experts, by the way. Mark Melanson is only 50% rostered. He has 2 saves and 2 chances, and he will continue to get the saves because he's successful. The other guy that I was mentioning earlier is Diego Castillo. He's got 2 saves, I believe. And the thing is that Diego Castillo is a Tampa Bay Ray, and Tampa Bay is notorious for a closer by committee. So if history tells us anything, it is that, yes, Diego Castillo has 2 saves. Don't spend all your money on him because that could change at the flick of a hat, whatever, flick of a pin, or I don't know what they say. It could change any day. He will get a good amount of opportunities probably as the closer, especially if he continues to be successful saving games. That's one thing that, like, if he saves enough games in a row, it gets to the point where it's really hard to take that opportunity away from him because a lot of times you'll see a closer go out with injury and you'll see the guy that replaces him do very well. And it's really hard for the guy to get his job back once he comes back from injury because just you don't mess with things that aren't broken, and you're not going to punish a guy that's been effective as the closer, just be like, oh, it's not your job anymore. And it does happen, but not in Tampa Bay. And I just think that this isn't because of an injury anyways. He's got the opportunity first and he's been good at it. If he closes enough games out successfully, they aren't going to be able to take him out of that spot. Okay. Daniel Bard is another one. Shame on you again. He's only owned in 60% of leagues. He is the closer in Colorado. Okay, that's iffy on its own. The Colorado, Coors Field, whatever. But he's been successful there so far. He does have 1 save already. And Anthony Bass, Daniel was saying, should I drop Anthony Bass and pick up Daniel Bard? No, I don't think you should drop anybody right this minute. I do not. And I think that Anthony Bass is the closer. And he's going to get they're not just going to take the closer job away from him after 1 bad outing. Okay. He didn't get it done in Miami. He didn't get it done. He pitches in the best pitcher park in the league. He has got that on his side. And you see, we don't really know how successful of a closer Anthony Bass is going to be either. But look at Daniel Bard. I'm not saying he's the most reliable guy in baseball because he was out for a lot of years, like injured all the time. Anthony Bass has not had a lot of opportunities to save games yet, so we don't really know how successful he will be. But he pitches in the best park versus Daniel Bard, who pitches in the worst park for pitchers. You got that, okay? And I can imagine that Miami is probably actually going to win more games than Colorado this year because Colorado is really bad. They're just really bad, they're just bad. So we have Ian Kennedy is another guy that I think is going to be the closer in Texas. I really do think he's going to be the closer because his competition, which is Matt Bush, I don't think he has any experience. Regardless, Ian Kennedy does have experience. Just a couple years ago, he saved 30 games. So he's only owned in 30% of leagues. He's only rostered 30% of leagues. Spend a couple bucks on Ian Kennedy. I did. I put him on my Tout Wars team happily. And, Richard Rodriguez is another guy that I have in Tout Wars. And it's like, I actually thought he was a decent pitcher until I saw him this spring. And I was like, holy crap, he's horrible. Like, they're talking about like taking his job away before the season even started. So he's risky too. All the closers are risky. They really are. There's only a handful of teams, a handful of closers that are not that risky, but they still have some risk involved with them. Okay. Nate Lowe is one that Douglas brought up, and I think I'm probably a little higher on Nate Lowe than Douglas is. Texas starting first baseman, that's what he is. He used to play for Tampa Bay. He didn't really have an everyday job there, so we can't really expect him to be like showing everything that he's got because he didn't get that much of an opportunity. He is going to have regular at-bats in Texas. Strikes out a lot, okay? We'll see what happens with that. He does strike out a lot. His contact rate is not that good. In fact, he hit 205, okay, and struck out 15 times in 44 at-bats this spring, but he still got the job over the other guy, which was Guzman, I think, but I can't remember for sure, so don't quote me on that, okay? I can't remember. Last year, he struck out in 2020 36% of the time. The year before that, he only struck out 29% of the time. At least it was in the 20s. He doesn't really walk that much. But I can tell you that Nate Lowe, okay, according to RotoWire, full season projections, playing first base for Texas, 25 home runs, 80 RBIs, 78 runs, and 3 stolen bases is what RotoWire projects him to do with a 269 batting average. I mean, so far this year, he's got 4 RBIs so far, 1 extra base hit, 2 hits out of 6 at bats. So, okay, he's starting the season good, even though his spring was horrible, and I don't even know how he got the job, okay? So that's what we got there, dude. As far as, I don't know. I was going to talk about this whole, I don't know. I feel like it's so dangerous to even talk about your own opinion anymore that it's like, I'm not trying to run like any of the friends. I guess if you're still my friend, then you're okay with what I have to say because I haven't really held back so far in my life, and I probably won't because I feel like there's so much that there's just so it's like in these days and age, you have to be willing to look and read the documents. Like you have to be willing to actually take some time and go read the new voter laws in Georgia to make a decision on what you think. Because they're really, the fact that MLB has decided to yank that game out of Georgia is a horrible, it's not a good way to get more fans. If that's the goal, that's just not a good way. I feel like there's a lot of people, including myself, that feel very offended by that. And there's a lot of people that are missing out on money and that, have suffered throughout this pandemic and stuff that planned on having that game in Atlanta. And the businesses around it have reservations. And I mean, everything is already planned because it's only just a couple months from now. And so to yank it over voting laws. And, the funniest thing about it, if you think about it, I want to just talk a little bit about what I did read. I did read it. It's 98 pages. I read the new law that they just did, and I very much try to be unbiased, even though I do lean right. I absolutely try to throw that aside and say, how would I feel if I was on the left? How would I feel if I, I try to put myself in the shoes of the other side and say, okay, I can understand why they're offended by this or whatever. Lenny said they're talking about having this MLB All-Star game now in Milwaukee. And Wisconsin has some of the strictest voting laws in the country. And I'm sure, and I know for a fact that MLB didn't bother to actually read this law before they made this decision, because if they did, they would know that what the media is saying about this law is not true. They say that it's suppressing votes. And if you believe that you should not have to have an ID card to vote, then okay, then you would probably think that this is suppressing votes. But realistically, how many people walk around with no ID card? Honestly, you have to have an ID card for everything. You have to have an ID card to go to school, to drive a car, to get on a train, to get on a plane, to go to the library, to buy beer at the game. You have to buy beer. You have to have an ID. If you have to go pick up the tickets at the will call, you have to have an ID. You have to have an ID for everything in life. And so to say that people of color don't have access to ID is ridiculous. Every country in the world requests that somebody prove who they are to vote. It is an absolute privilege to vote, and everybody should vote. And I don't think that anybody is trying to suppress anybody's vote. They just want it to. Georgia already had ID laws, but now they're making sure that the ID laws coincide with mail-in ballots. They're saying on the media, they're telling you that they're not allowing anybody to have food or water while they're waiting in line, but that's not true. They just don't want people giving food away to coerce people to vote in that direction. So you're allowed to have water out for people standing in line. It's got to be just a jug of water with cups next to it, and it can't have anybody's logo on it, and it can't be advertisement for a party. They're trying to avoid people like bribing other people to vote their way by giving them stuff in the line. They say you're not allowed to give out food, water, anything. You're not allowed to give out stuff for free to people that are trying to vote. I don't see how that is a problem. Yes, they can have water, absolutely. And if the poll workers put out a table with water on it, then that's what they would do if they actually cared about the voters standing in line, but they don't. They're too busy complaining and making up lies about what this really is. And so there's that. The bill requires that they don't send ballots to unregistered voters or to people that don't request a ballot. And they're saying that they made the time limit so small. No, it went from 6 months they had to request a ballot, 6 months in 2020. Now they have 9 weeks. They have 9 weeks to request a mail-in ballot and to get it shipped and, get it sent. And they have 9 weeks. Why do they need longer than 9 weeks to get a mail-in ballot? The hours that they're saying that Biden is a whole different podcast, okay? But for him to get up there and say that that this is Jim Crow too, because they're not going to be open for working class people to get to the polls in time. They're only required to be open from 9 to 5, or that they're, and the new law says that they have to be open from at least 9 to 5, and it's up to the counties to decide if they want to stay open later. They can stay open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., but they have to be open between the hours of 9 and 5. And even the Washington Post, which I do not trust most of the time. So any of you that know me would be like, why are you using Washington Post as your source for this particular conversation? But you're usually talking about how Washington Post is a liar. Well, because most people that lean left, they trust Washington Post. And so I feel like it's a good example, if you're interested in knowing what this bill has to say, that the Washington Post gave Biden 4 Pinocchios, which is the highest number of Pinocchios you can get according to their fact check system, and even said straight up in their articles that this actually, the net effect is to expand the opportunities to vote for most Georgians. That's what the Washington Post says. Totally calls out Biden for lying. And I feel like if you take a moment and you actually go and read the paperwork, what got passed, you can type into your search engine, you could type in 202. It's the Georgia Bill 202, and you will find a PDF of the actual bill that you can scan through. You can search, because it's a PDF, you can actually search for specific words. So you can search for like food, water, you can search for ID, you can search for all of it. But if MLB has the audacity to take the All-Star game away from Atlanta Braves and the Atlanta people, the citizens of Atlanta, who rely on this big time for money and who deserve to have it there, if they take it away from them and they put it in a place like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which state, okay, has the top 5 of strict voter laws, that every year they complain about voter suppression in Wisconsin. That's just a joke to me. And I don't know, man. There's nothing that I can do about it. There's nothing that I could do about it. I talk about baseball every week. I love baseball. I love fantasy. It's pretty much linear in my life, that what we do. It's just sad to see that like an organization like this is caving to the corporate sponsors and the woke mob, yelling and screaming in their faces about how, because the woke mob is very much louder than the other side, and they tend to get their way lately because cancel culture is like a cool thing and everybody wants to be virtue signaling and all this. But MLB it's just disgusting to me that they would actually take a side in this and yank this All-Star game from a city that, why is it Atlanta's fault anyway? Is it the people of Atlanta's fault? Okay, if the voter laws are bad, it's not the people and the businesses, the small business owners in Atlanta, it's not their fault. Why should they're suffering because the voter IDs you don't agree with. But I'll tell you what, right now, if they take it and they put it into another state with strict voter ID laws, and how can anybody honestly tell me that they would rather have an open heyday for just anybody can go vote without any kind of ID, and you don't have to have any proof of who you are? Where is that legal? Where is that even allowed? It's certainly not allowed in most democratic countries in the entire world, and anybody with a fair election does not allow people to vote without some form of ID. And to act like people of color or whatever, to minorities, to act like they don't have an ID is basically saying that they can't get one because either they don't have a way to get it because they're not smart enough to get it, or they don't live in the world. They live in the world. They guaranteed they have an ID card. And the only reason to fight against it is because you like to, I don't know, man. I don't know. So anyway, that's my rant on MLB. And I even feel bad just saying it, but I swear I will not, I'm not, I don't know. Everybody has a right to say how they feel, right? And so it's like you could be demoralized so easy because people, if you do say how you feel and it's not the same as what everybody else thinks, and you're not thinking the same, you lose friends over it. You get completely like canceled and ostracized on Twitter and in public. People will try to get you fired from your job, and that is unacceptable to me, and I will not stand for it. And that's it. So I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you Monday at the round table, 8 o'clock. See you then.